Inspiration, clarity, confidence, and wholehearted business strategy. Welcome to Your Next Chapter, the podcast especially for women in their 40s and beyond who know that business and personal development go hand in hand. Tune in each week for marketing, mindset, and personal growth strategies, along with inspiring stories from women around the world who are creating new businesses and lives that are personally fulfilling and financially rewarding. If you're looking to create a business and life you love, you're in great company. Let's find out what will unfold in your next chapter. I'm your host, Angela Rasmus, and I'm so delighted that you're here. Hi there, this is Angela, and welcome to episode 12 in the Your Next Chapter podcast. Thanks for spending your time with me today. Now, in this episode, we are diving into the idea of personal style. Now, not from a branding and a logo perspective. What we're talking about is the way that you physically show up in the world, the clothes that you choose to actually project your personality and your message into the marketplace. Now, my lovely guest is a Kiwi by the name of Leanne Mulcahy, and she is the image coach and an author of the recently released book Notes to Self on Style, Confidence and Loving Your Body. Because yes, it is definitely possible, ladies. Now, Leanne is very passionate about helping business owners like us create what she calls a profitable image, being really clear on aligning who you are with the way in which you project yourself physically and stylishly into the world so that you attract the type of aligned clients that do take you on that profitable path. Now, she does that by helping you to find the wardrobe to showcase who you are, letting go of all of those rules and that pressure of needing to look a certain way or follow a certain style. It's all about finding your individual style. And the way that she does that is helping you get dressed in a way that is a true reflection of who you are. She helps you connect the dots and really cleverly show you how to use clothes as your ally, not as your enemy. And when you define your own style, you will feel confident and make decisions and purchases based on who it is that you are today, not the person perhaps that you used to be in a former chapter. Now, of course, as with most of the episodes that are in the Next Chapter podcast, we have a wonderful resource associated with this particular episode. It's a personal style clarity questionnaire, asking some really clear, simple, but powerful questions to help you start to define your own style. You know, are you classic? Are you contemporary? Are you romantic or natural, or lots of other nuances in between? Asking yourself these questions and taking good notes of the answers that you make to yourself will help you define that style so that you can really feel completely aligned in the way that you are showing up in the world. Now, to get this download, you simply go to angelarasmus.com/12 and the word download. So that's angelarasmus.com/12 download. So you can start asking yourself the clarity questions to uncover your personal style. Now, we had a really wholehearted conversation, and I'm really looking forward to you tuning into the nuggets of inspiration and that genuine idea that style is an inside job. Once you are feeling confident and comfortable with who you are, the choices you make and the way that that's reflected in those choices feel really good. So no more throwing open that wardrobe and behoving, I have nothing to wear. Once you've recognized your own style and start to really lean into it, it gets a heck of a lot easier to get dressed in the morning. And Leanne actually talks about the sacred space of your wardrobe. So there's some really interesting things to dive into. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Let's get started. Well, good morning, Leanne. I am so appreciative of the time that you're taking to talk to us today, and hugely excited about having this wholehearted conversation. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Angela. It's lovely to be here with you today.
Awesome. There's a couple of reasons why I'm rather excited. Number one is that you're a Kiwi. That's where I was born, where I left in 1988 for just 3 months to come to Sydney, and I'm still here. So I feel that real connection still to my country, and so it's lovely to speak to a Kiwi. But it's also the reason I wanted to connect with you and share your insights and your experience and your perspective with the women who are loving the Next Chapter podcast is because what you say about style being an inside job, that's just such a massive statement. And the conversation you and I were having just before we hit record about if you're not happy, it doesn't matter what you're wearing, you're not going to feel great. Could you just expand a little bit on that, please, darling?
Absolutely. So we were talking about wearing your PJs, and I think that if you are wearing whatever you're wearing, if you're not feeling good about who you are when you look in the mirror and think, am I worthy of showing up? If you don't feel worthy, then it's going to be really tough to actually dress that body of yours. So it won't matter whether you have $1 million suit on or, $5 yoga pants. It's not going to make any difference what you wear if you don't feel great about who you are. So I always start from the inside and work my way out with clients whenever I work with them.
Now, that's a philosophy that I'm absolutely a fan of as well. I believe that at the core of everything that we do in our next chapter businesses is that need for self-worth, that believing in our value, that knowing that we are worthy and trusting ourselves to make the decisions that really support us and creating that business and life that we're really after. So you and I are definitely on the same page here for sure. And, can I ask, this whole idea of developing a next chapter business, I believe it's about leveraging and sharing your unique story and your experiences. So is your image coaching business a next chapter for you? Was there a backstory?
Oh, there's a big backstory, which as there always is. I think when you've got 40 plus years of experience, there's definitely a backstory. But I actually wrote a book about my backstory because it was because when I show up today in front of a group and I speak to women just like you and I, they don't believe that I didn't have any confidence or any sense of my self-worth. And I couldn't work out how to actually convince them of this fact. So I had to share my story, and I did that in a way that was in a written form because that was more comfortable for me to do. And this is the next chapter for me. This is definitely the next chapter in that I've taken that 40 plus years of experience and turned it into a business that I absolutely adore because I get to do and help amazing women who are starting their next chapter mostly. So and mostly the women I deal with are 40 plus and they are looking for something more, looking to create a style that actually aligns with who they are now, not who they were maybe 10 years ago.
Oh, that is such an important point. Creating a style that aligns with who you are now, not who you were 10 years ago. That word aligned is a word that comes up a lot in my own community as well, is that we have to feel right. We have to, when it comes to the business side of things, it's so important that we are doing work in the world that is fulfilling for us, that feels as though it makes a difference. It needs to be wholehearted, is very much the perspective that we come from. But that idea of recognizing that we have moved into a new stage of life and that we really have different goals, different values, all things have changed. And that also spills over in the way that we physically show up in the world with what we wear. I know if I tried to pull back the wardrobe from my early 30s and my mid 30s, I don't think it's quite where I'm at these days. So there's some big changes that have to happen. So, I love how you describe your business as one that empowers women to discover the freedom to dress in a way that's a true reflection of who they are, which is what we're saying here. But what I'm wondering is, how do we tap into that innate sense of style? For me, I've got a backstory running in my head that I'm just not stylish. I've often lamented that I don't have style. I grew up on a farm in New Zealand wearing gumboots. And that's a story I've told myself for a long time, is that I have nothing to wear because I don't make good choices. How do you deal with someone like me that has that type of story going on?
Oh my God, I shut you in a wardrobe that's really chaotic and don't let you out.
I think I do that to myself.
But that is not the only story, and we all have one at some point in time where we're not fully connected to who we are. That's what I believe, and I hear the story as of I'm too old, I'm too fat, I'm too this, I'm too that, I've got kids, I don't have time. And it is the story that we tell ourselves to stop ourselves from fully expressing who we are. And Can you repeat your question, please, Angela?
Oh, that's okay. No, this, as you're saying, the stories there of, too old, too fat, don't have time, I have kids, that we tend to push ourselves down that priority totem pole. In my case, it's that I don't have style. I grew up on a farm wearing gumboots. I don't know fashion. I don't know what suits me and how to, I'm a fairly confident person overall, but how to actually make the choices around the clothing that does express my personal style. That's a bit of a gap that I find hard to cross. So how can we begin to traverse that gap?
Yeah, because I think often what we do is we open up the closet and we see the sea of clothes in there. We're trying to select something that doesn't feel right. So starting from actually getting clear about who you are now, and that means, what do you love? What colours do you love? Whose style do you admire? Is there anything that really inspires you? What type of environments do you enjoy being in? What kind of work do you do, and who are you engaging with? And these are all questions to help build clarity around who you are and how you want to show up. I mean, you can take the analogy of an Italian woman who's cooking in her fabulous kitchen, and she's voluptuous and flamboyant and waving her arms around, but try and put her in a structured suit and things just will, go haywire. So if you try to dress your personality rather than, people often start with the clothes first. So flipping that round and going, actually, what do I want? How do I want to feel? What fabrics do I love to touch? What fabrics feel great against my skin? And, we all have an inherent colour scheme that we ignore mostly, and we look outside of ourselves and go to maybe a colour consultant who can tell you these are the colours that you should wear, but actually you can decide that for yourself just by looking at the mirror and looking at your eyes and seeing what colour they are, and you can buy clothes that match the colour of your eyes and you'll look incredible. So there's some very, very simple things that we can do to actually create a style that represents who we are. And I think when it comes to business, then you've got another facet where you're looking at what type of people you want to engage with and what type of people do you want to create these long-lasting, meaningful relationships with.
Oh, my brain is going haywire at the moment. Actually, you just given me a real realization there as you were talking, and those questions that we can ask ourselves, they have such great answers. They're going to bubble up as a result. I think of when I was in corporate world before I had my own business, of what I used to dress like, and then I think of when I had my marketing agency for many, many years, and I believed had to project a certain sort of style because of the type of clients that I was working with. It had to have more of that corporate overtone. But once I've actually let go of that and moved into this particular business, which I've been running now for 3 years, this next chapter business, I can have a much more relaxed style because of who I've become and the way that I want to show up. So really what we're saying here is that you're giving yourself permission, aren't you? There doesn't have to be rules.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be rules.
No, and I think we're so bound by some of the rules, and we're so, particularly when we start to think about turning 40 and 40 plus, and we think, maybe we're too old to wear this type of clothing anymore. But actually, it's all about how you wear it. It's got nothing to do with your age. I've seen a woman who's 70 years old wear a miniskirt, and that, she didn't wear it without wearing something underneath, but how she wore it was just incredible, that you never looked at her and thought, that's mutton dressed as lamb, which is a comment I hear so often.
That's such a Kiwi saying, I think.
I know.
I love
it. It's a terrible saying.
Oh, but
it's actually an English saying.
Oh,
I looked it up.
That's where it came from. So that idea of style evolving with age is true, but there is a huge component of that which comes to you've evolved. And so it's that being in that place of being more accepting of yourself and more willing to take a bit of a, inverted commas, risk by following your heart. And when you're in the department store and you see that particular dress or that colour, God damn it, try it on. If you're attracted to it, if it's calling you, then that's about giving yourself permission, isn't it?
there's a reason why colours call to us, and it's not something that we just fancy. It's it's our intuitive nature that's letting us know, actually, that's something that maybe we need to try. And whether we have a favourite colour, but it doesn't look so great when we wear it, we can build that into accessories and other ways to build that in. So it's always around you, because colour makes you feel good, you know. I know I wore black for an entire year because I was in mourning. I didn't realise it until after the fact, but I didn't want to make intimate connections with anybody unless I had to. And so I wore black to keep people at bay, and it worked. You know, so colours are powerful, and clothes are really powerful. And when we understand the power that they have, that's when we can make really, really confident decisions about how we show up.
So I love that idea. Okay, so there is that ability to make the choices that really appeal to us, that call to us. But how can we overlay that with? I mean, let's just get basic here for a moment. Here I am, a next chapter woman working at home, does the events as well. So that's when I'll sort of get a bit more dressed up when I'm out there. But is there sort of like, you know, some basics? Everyone talks about the basic wardrobe when you're younger. You know, the blue jeans, the white t-shirt, the loafers, or the blazer, etc. Do those same sort of approaches apply? Is there sort of like, particular clothes that particular shapes or particular things we, inverted commas, should have in our wardrobes, or is that really being let go of?
I think that there are some basic things that we have, but it really depends on that style personality. You know, if you are somebody who loves the romance of life and you love the frills, then you're probably not going to have too many basic pieces in your wardrobe. In the sense of foundation pieces. In New Zealand, we layer up over the changing seasons, so we might have a basic singlets or long sleeve tops that we wear under things. But it really, really does depend on what your style personality is. And there are some women who work from home who dress up in what we might perceive as going out wear every day. That's how they dress when they go to their home office. But so it really, really does depend. So I think actually what I'm saying is what you said, is that foundation pieces work if you want a simplistic wardrobe. Mm-hmm. Some people don't want that. So really defining and getting clear on what your style personality is first, and then selecting the clothes to match, rather than trying to determine what clothes we should have. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, and because you're referring to these style personalities, and things are popping up in my head, and I'm thinking, okay, well, there's obviously distinct styles, and although we can't pop ourselves into boxes that absolutely fit us, is there, or are you able to expand a little there on the different style types that you see?
Yeah, there's many, but some of the most dominant ones are the classic styles. So if you think Condoleezza Rice, for example, who has a very classic style, classic suits, classic jewellery, and a classic hairstyle, everything's very classic, timeless, elegant, and quite serious in some cases, so you can take those to the extreme. And then you might have somebody who's more contemporary, so has a sort of a classic basis, but brings in some interesting factors, and they may wear interesting scarves and some textures, some leather and things like that. Then you might have a romantic style who, if you think Sex and the City, sort of Sarah Jessica Parker style, that kind of really want to embrace their feminine side and wear floaty fabrics and pinks and things like that. Or you've got your natural woman who enjoys wearing jeans. She's more outdoorsy. She loves natural fibres. So those are just some of the basic sort of categories, if you like. And I totally agree that you can't put yourself into this box, but it is a starting point if you need one. And I think Pinterest is a fantastic tool to use if you're looking for some inspiration around this. I know that for some of my clients, I build these Pinterest Pinterest boards for them so that they can actually have the starting point. Because when you start delving into somebody's personality and what they do in their work and how they live, you can actually start to determine what style will really suit them. So sometimes it's easier for somebody else to do that rather than trying to analyze yourself, if you like.
It can be tricky, that's for sure.
Yeah, it can be tricky.
Pinterest, I think Pinterest is fabulous. I've only just started sort of delving into it myself. In mid-2015, I had a complete rebrand of my business, and part of that, when I was working with the UK brand designer, was to get into Pinterest and to start to find the things that appeal to you. And I think this whole next chapter journey is all about increasing our levels of self-awareness. And I found that exercise quite challenging at first because of that story I had running with the I have no style, I have no idea what I like. And I found as I was pinning things, I had this, the inner critic that you the itty bitty shitty committee that you mentioned before. She was sitting with me the whole time when I was pinning things on Pinterest, going, "Do you really like that? That's so different from the last thing you pinned. Are you sure? You really?" She was going off, and it took a while to actually move through that and begin to trust myself to simply pick what I liked. Not what I thought I should like, not what I thought the brand stylist might approve of, but what I actually liked. And it took me about 3 boards until I got to the stage where I saw a theme start to come through. And with your description of those styles, the dominant ones that you see a lot, the classic, the contemporary, the romantic, the natural, I could see that I'm a classic. That really started coming through. Like everything was quite simple and classic, elegant, that type of thing. And that actually, when I went then looked at my wardrobe, I went like, you know what, quite a few of my dresses are pretty classic. And it actually started to make me feel better that I did have a style. I just had never identified it, and I'd certainly never spent much time on working out how I could draw it out. Do you find that the women that you're working with have those type of aha moments as well when they start to recognize that, hey, damn it, I actually do have a style?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's sometimes actually putting a little bit of structure or some words around it can really help them identify what that style is for them. And I think what you were saying before about actually it was a branding exercise for you, well, a lot of this is actually a branding exercise, particularly when you're looking at translating that your personal style into your professional style and how that shows up, whether that's offline or online. So this is definitely for want of a better word, a branding exercise, but a personal branding exercise rather than,
And it's so because a lot of us, the great majority of women that I have been working with myself, these next chapter businesses are all about, as I mentioned at the beginning, leveraging our life experiences. And the word that comes up a lot, one of them is fulfilling. This work needs to be fulfilling. But the flip side to that is authenticity. I need to show up as who I am, because when you're making those personal connections, as so many of us are in our businesses, in our solo entrepreneurial adventures, what you see is what you get. There needs to be that seamless connection between the way you show up online and the way that you show up in the real world and with your clients, because that's when you actually begin to attract the clients who are most aligned with you. And I know in the past, it takes a while sometimes for us to find our place in the world, and that's what the next chapters are all about. But if I go back and look at, again, my marketing agency, the clients that I was attracting were corporate and very business-like and quite serious and, getting stuff done, and because that was the style that we were projecting. Where now that I've given myself permission to soften into who I really am, the clients that I'm attracting are beautifully aligned with me. And that's what I want, I guess, everyone who's listening to understand, that you don't have to be anyone but yourself. Anyone but yourself when you're in this next chapter, personal brand type of space. So how do you see, you're talking about confident communication through style. How could that actually help someone who is first starting their business, or, moving into this next chapter and going, okay, how do I pull my personal style and my business style together? So if there was someone coming to you and saying, where do I start, Leanne? How would you help that person? Pinterest is obviously a great starting point, but how would you help?
Pinterest is a great starting point. But I think actually, so Pinterest is a great starting point, but also some of the questions around, what are the things that you love, whether that it doesn't need to be clothing, but what are the things that you love? What colours really inspire you? What colours are you looking at for your business? You might have already branded your business and you've done that for a reason. So start incorporating some of that into your thinking around getting clear of who you are. And then taking that wardrobe, taking that the clarity around who you are, and then going to your wardrobe and creating a sacred space, because I believe that space is a space that we go to every day to put on clothes. And when it's in a chaotic, disorganized, I'm not loving everything mess, it's not very inspiring. So I highly recommend that that you take that space, get rid of anything in there that doesn't actually represent who you are now, and take those things out that you're waiting to wear when you lose the 10 kgs, or take those things out that you're waiting to wear for a, whatever's going to happen, and only have things in there that you love. And it brings up all sorts of things, because as women, we tend to hold on to the emotional factor that is related to different outfits. We might have worn them for a particular occasion, but they don't belong in your everyday wardrobe. Put them somewhere else, sure, but they don't belong there. So clear the clutter from your space, and it clears that chaos from your mind when you think, I've got nothing to wear. Because nothing to wear is just confusion about what to wear. So, and then start building on that. Start experimenting. Don't buy anything until you know what you're going to buy. So make yourself a list and then go out to the store. Don't go without one, especially if you're starting out, because we can get so confused if we go to the shop first to buy some clothes because we want something new that reflects who we are now. And we go to the store and we look at the racks and we think, there's nothing here for me. I hate shopping. Mm. And we have this, I can't find anything to wear. I'm just going to revert to what I've got because that's, it feels comfortable, or whatever the story is that we're telling ourselves.
I can actually see there's some definite steps that are involved here, in which we'll cover off in the download exercise that comes along with this particular episode. But I love just coming back to some words that you use there, the sacred wardrobe space. Now, yes. that actually made me pause for a moment and start thinking about my own wardrobe and what sort of state it is in. And I know that, what happened with me earlier this year is actually I had a girlfriend who we ended up getting rid of, I think it was 4 or might have been 5 big rubbish bags full of clothes. Things that I donated and things that I just let go of. A few things that I sold as well, because I was doing exactly what you said. I was holding on. I was not letting go. I was holding on to something that, I'd have to lose a good 10 kilos to fit back into it, but I had that, maybe I will sort of thought going in the back of my head. And so holding on to stuff like that meant that whenever I went to my wardrobe, I actually did have very little to wear, even though it was absolutely chockers, because I was holding on to stuff that no longer represented who I was now. And actually going through that exercise and letting go, the feeling of lightness, feeling just so much better because of that decluttering. But even now, there's another step past that, is that I don't actually have a high respect for my wardrobe. Like, it's not nicely laid out. It's not, it really is, even though there's less stuff in there, it's still, I'm not giving it the attention or even the love that it really deserves. So is it surprising that when I go to it, I feel a bit flattened when I'm actually looking at what's in there, because it's still jumbled? So what you're saying is, treat that space really well, because it's a reflection of how you're going to feel when it comes to choosing clothes in the morning.
Yeah, and, people organise their spaces in different ways. So there's not one prescribed way of doing this. There are definitely, examples that I can give, but they don't suit everyone. We don't all think the same way. But what I know is that when you, if you think about working from home, for example, having paper all across your desk, trying to find something and you can never find it, and you just feel a little bit more frantic than would if it was sorted into piles or filed away or whatever. The same applies to our wardrobes, being able to easily see what we have to wear. And, I had one client who was, who had a brain injury, and it would be about seven years ago now. And one of the things that she found was that she got stressed a lot more easily. So we actually created a space for her. We created her wardrobe into outfits so that she didn't have to think too much in the mornings when it was really hard for her to get her brain warmed up. So organise your wardrobe in a way that works for you.
Absolutely. I'm thinking there might be some action happening in my wardrobe this afternoon to get things a little bit more organised. So really, we've been talking in all different little aspects of how the way we perceive ourselves and the way that we want to show up and the things that appeal to us all come together to really fuse into that personal style overall. So can I ask, where can people go to find out more about you and about how you help people actually get this style together? Because it's just such an important part of our next chapter. I'd love to put people into your arms where they can be well taken care of. So where can we find you?
You can find me online. I'm online at www.leannemulcahy.com, or I'm on Facebook. And I'm also lurking around Pinterest sometimes, but I can share the links and people can connect with me. Or if you want to know a little bit more about what I do, just send me an email at support@leannemulcahy.com.
That's brilliant. And I'd also like to mention the fact that the book that you've just brought out, which is Notes to Self on Style, Confidence and Loving Your Body, where can we find that? I'll put a link in the show notes, but just give us, if someone's listening now and eager to leap over there straight away, is that available online, or where can we find that book?
Sure, it's available online. So either through my website, or you can go direct to Amazon.com and find it there.
Oh, that's brilliant. Well, Leanne, thank you so much. This whole idea of style being really a personal job, an inside job. I loved those questions that you were suggesting that we ask ourselves, which we'll make sure are in the download for everybody who's listening today.
Right.
But it really is just being a bit gentler on ourselves and allowing ourselves to lean into and be attracted by the things that appeal to us. There isn't rules. This next chapter is about giving yourself permission to really blossom and bloom as you want to show up in the world, which is such a relief, I think, rather than having to follow a whole load of rules when it comes to style.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Angela.
Well, thank you so much again for spending your time with us today. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to us talking again soon.
Thanks, Angela. It was lovely talking with you.
And everybody, thank you for spending your time and attention here today listening to the Next Chapter podcast. I really appreciate your time as well and your investment of energy and attention. And I encourage you to download this episode, but also to go and have a look at your own wardrobe. Is there things in there that are no longer reflective of the woman that you have become today? You can let go of that old story of who you were and step into the next chapter of who you are becoming and the woman that you are today. So there's great freedom in that type of decision, and I'd hugely encourage you to take Leanne's advice and to make those moves. So thanks again for listening, and I look forward to talking with you again on the next show. This is Angela Raspis. Have a lovely day. Thanks for listening to the Your Next Chapter podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please let me know. Pop over to angelaraspis.com to subscribe to the show and leave a review. And whilst you're there, you can also enjoy valuable free resources, including show notes and downloads, along with the Next Chapter community, where you can connect with other wholehearted women on the same journey as you. We'd love to welcome and support you as your next chapter unfolds. See you next time.